Thank you very much, Liz. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're keeping well. Thank you for joining me this evening. So, title of the talk, the highlights and pitfalls of gemstone tourism. What I would like to do is, yes, give you a taste of what I've been up to over the last 3 years. And I'd like to actually start with a little bit about myself, and then if you've got your passports ready, we can jet off to some of these places. But who am I? So this is a little, I'm not quite sure how old I was here, but as you can see, I was babe, and I was adopted at 6 months old. And my birth name actually was my favorite gemstone. Some of you may know this, but my birthstone was actually my birth name was in fact this month's birthstone. So yes, I was named Ruby at birth, which also happens to be my favorite gemstone. And I was adopted into a middle class British family. So I have siblings who are now all over the world, but we're also very multicultural. I have a brother in Australia, a brother in America, a sister in London. I had a Filipino brother, but he sadly died a few years ago. So who else am I? So I'm married. I'm a cat lover. I love a gin and tonic. And I love the sunshine. You'll never find me walking in the shade. So there you go. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. But let's get on with shall we? So yes. So just to let you know, I've always loved gemstones. From a very very early age, and you may know the story that, in fact, when I was only 7 years old, I was actually invited by the Independent Adoption Society to present Princess Alexandra with a bouquet of flowers. You may have heard about the movie Jaws. Well, in 1976, it premiered in Leicester Square, and as you can see, my sister and I were there. Speaking to Princess Alexandra, and I gave her her bow of flowers, a bouquet of flowers, and my sister gave her husband the program for the event. And I was a little bit disconcerted. I was a little bit disappointed, actually. I have to admit that when I saw Princess Alexandra, and she bent down to me, and I whispered in her ear, "Where's your crown?" So like I say, I was just a bit disappointed because I thought every princess wore a crown, and I was very cheeky as well. So that's really, I don't know where, maybe it's in my blood. I'm not quite sure, where that love came from. So how did really I get to where I am today? And it really, this particular journey with Gemstone Detective all started with this mistake I made. My husband and I went on holiday to Egypt, and this is where I actually fell in love with this beautiful red ruby stone. I mean, I had, to be honest, I mean, I was a little bit, well, not a little bit, I was a big gemstone addict. I watched a lot of gemstone television, and a bit of reading, but I thought I knew quite a bit about gemstones, and I went along to this little place in Egypt on my holiday, and as I say, I fell in love with this red gemstone, and I could swear it doesn't say it on the what I thought was actually a certificate or a guarantee, but it doesn't say it on there. But I swear that he told me it was a natural Burmese ruby. Well, little did I know. I mean, the price should have really told me something, but I believed him, and I bought the ruby. And then when I actually got it back to London, I showed it to a gemologist friend, and he sort of, and he said, "I'm really sorry, but it's probably glass or something." But I didn't know actually that the Egyptians, that they are masters, they are artisans of creating imitation precious gemstones out of glass. I didn't know that, but there you go. They've been doing it for hundreds of years, apparently. So that was really what, that was really where this all started. And then because of that, I kind of did feel a little bit stupid, as it were. And that really kind of that was the kick that I needed to go and actually study gemstones properly. So I went to the GIA full time. So I gave up my photography business for 6 months, and I went along and studied in the classroom with about 15 other young students. I think I was the eldest in the class at that stage, and I qualified as a gemologist. So where did I decide then to take all that new knowledge that I had? Well, it kind of took me back to my experience that I had had in Egypt, and really this is why I decided that I came up with the idea of the books, that I would like to help other people avoid that same error. I mean, at that time, I remember I was just somebody who really was fanatical about gemstones, and so I was a tourist, really. So when I started writing the books, I've called them the Essential Tourist Guide. But really, so it's really kind of taken me by surprise that the books have actually been, such a hit with people who are in the industry, in the trade. Even, I mean, mostly who have just entered the trade. But I've even had some really experienced sort of gemologists and people write to me and said, you know what, I still learned a thing or two. So that's good. But I've called them the Essential Tourist Guide. And this was my plan, that I would, that I wanted to really cover the main tourist hotspots, not necessarily the gemstone origins, but it's really getting into the tourist hotspots where tourists are, tourists frequent, tourists go on their holiday. But so this was my list. You can see down the side. And so far I have done, I've got to number 8. So I've done 8 books. And the Myanmar book is the only book that is unpublished at the moment. But anyway, so I'm working my way down the list. So, but let's for a minute talk about consumer tourism. So what do we mean about that? What do I mean about gemstone tourism, consumer tourism? Well, I did a bit of Googling to see what came up, and really it's all about consumer experiences, protection or promotion, and also encouraging the acquisition of goods and services. So from where I'm coming from, the books they aim to, it's about protection. I aim to try and protect tourists from, like I say, the same fate of being cheated. So basically, so what I've done is I've gone around the world and I have tried, I've tried a lot of the consumer experiences that are out there. So I put myself in, back in the shoes of the tourist, and I've tried out a lot of the consumer experiences, and those are all in the books, along with all the tips and everything else that I found along the way. So this is funny, actually. To quote, criminals thrive on the indulgence of society's understanding. So I don't know where that's a movie quote. I don't know if any of you can guess which movie that is, but the little emoji there is the clue. Well, I was actually attending a seminar on Monday, which was to do with business management, and they showed a clip from Batman Begins, the movie from 2005, and in it he says criminals thrive of the indulgence of society's understanding. Now, I personally think that should be, that criminals thrive on society's lack of understanding, and lack of knowledge. So but that's if you it's a good movie. I think you should go and watch it. It's not on Netflix, so I need to try and find it. But I really, but that kind of really, that rang a that kind of what's what I'm trying to say. That really oh, my brain's gone. That really sort of oh, my brain has really gone. That rang a bell. That means I can relate to that. The books that's it's relatable for the books is what I'm trying to say. So what are the issues? And again, I've been speaking to a lot of people, about the issues that when it comes to sort of, going and buying gemstones. And really, it's that people, want to buy without sort of feeling, that they're going to be cheated and that they're going to lose their money and that they're going to end up bringing back rubbish. So I suppose in a way it's people really just don't know who to trust, and they lack confidence. So really, again, my books are aimed at those people who my books really aim to give people confidence, and also because I give out the books are I give contacts for people that I've actually made established a relationship with on my travels, and they're in the books as well. So really, the books are there as a trusted resource to help give people confidence over buying gemstones and jewelry. So
sorry, Kim. Is your audio coming through a microphone this evening, or is it attached to your laptop?
No, it's on my desk. Am I sitting too far away from my audio?
I think we're getting a bit of reverb coming back off the microphone, so I don't know whether position it a bit closer to you or
closer. Okay, well, I can move closer. Is that any better?
Does that sound better, everybody? Just test it a little bit. We just had a couple of messages saying that there's some.
Okay, we didn't have any problems earlier, did we?
And it sounds fine to me. I think there's just a couple of people hearing a little bit of an echo.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. So yeah, the consensus is it sounds okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
So, now, the point that I want to make really though is that it can actually happen to anybody. This isn't really sort of about whether this isn't really about lack of knowledge or even lack of experience, because I was on Facebook the other day and I came across there's a Facebook group about gemology, and and these there was a whole conversation going on about sort of what other people what people have experienced. And as I say, these people in this group, these are people who are experienced in the industry, and they are still finding that they've had a bad experience where they've either lost money or, as you can see, bought a black diamond that ended up being a moissanite, or bought a turquoise bracelet. Well, it was fake sterling silver and fake turquoise, and the name was forged. And so this isn't really, it can happen to anyone, and I think it's important to recognize that. So how can we solve that problem? What have I done to try and solve that problem? Well, as I say, I've written the books, and this is what I believe that is the information that really every tourist needs. From the lowdown, what really goes on, and the do's and the don'ts, and popular local scams. Anyway, so there's a little list of those are really what I try to share. So, but let's get on. Let's go to Sri Lanka, shall we? So this was my first book that I wrote, and it was really kind of serendipitous actually, that the moment actually that I made my mind up that this is what I was going to do, I had a holiday booked, and this is where I was going to. This is where my husband and I were going already, and we actually booked a chauffeur. I think it's very well known that it's not a good idea to drive yourself in Sri Lanka. The drivers are a little bit mad, to say the least. So we booked a chauffeur driver, and it just so happened that he also worked in the gem trade. So the driving was his second job, and I think the gem trade was his first job. So he actually took me to the gemstone market, and really, which was a fabulous learning experience, because when you go to the gemstone market, you'll find that everybody crowds around you, and they'll try and put gemstones in your hand, and some, and again, it's really important, and I've put a lot of this information in the Sri Lanka book, that you have to look where you're standing, and you mustn't let people put, don't let more than one person put a gemstone in your hand at once, and and things like have your back to the wall so that people can't sort of hustle and bustle you and push you around, and watch where you're standing to make sure that there's no drain underneath. So I learned a lot really from just going to the market really, and but it was fantastic having this guy who could just told everybody just one at a time, and he said to them, she's learning, so it was really, really good. But the second time I actually went back to the gemstone market on another trip, I was actually with some people, and I had the shock of my life, because all of a sudden I looked down at my handbag and it was wide open, and I was thinking, I didn't leave my handbag wide open, surely not, because and it was around my neck, and it wasn't a touristy handbag, so I didn't exactly look like a tourist. I thought I was blending in, but I looked down and my handbag was open, and I suddenly thought, and I looked in there and I couldn't find my mobile phone, and I just thought, oh my goodness, this is my such a valuable, it's my phone is like my life's on this phone, and I whispered to the guy, and sort of, and he was telling everyone around, and anyway, it was stupid really, because it was in my handbag all along, and I was so embarrassed. I mean, I've just got this handbag that's got so many pockets, and there's a pocket that's hidden, and I have no idea how my mobile phone ended up in there, but it was. And I was so relieved, and what the people was so lovely about it, and it was just, oh, don't worry, and they brushed it off, and nobody thought the worst of me. And I mean, I was so embarrassed, but yeah, it was fine, So lovely, lovely, lovely people, and a really great way to learn about sort of buying gemstones by going to the gemstone market. So really, and I was just, I was really worried that I had my, my phone had been stolen, and that there was a thief in the crowd. But no, the only thief that I discovered that I actually have to worry about in Sri Lanka is the monkey thief. So never leave your bag unattended.
Failing to detect it.
So never leave your bag unattended like I did, because he really did, was trying to make off with all my camera lenses. So anyway, but yeah, Sri Lanka is a lovely country, and they're lovely, lovely people. So let's now go to Thailand, which is again one of my favorite countries, and I do love a good Thai curry. Now, this was a brand new place that I went to. It had actually only recently opened, and I decided that I wanted to go and take a look. Well, I had the address, which and I decided actually that the easiest way or the fastest way to get there would be on the back of a motorbike. So, and I did, it was absolutely no problem. I jumped on the back of the motorbike, but it just turned out to be such a long way out. I mean, it was at least an hour and a half to 2 hours on the back of the motorbike, although it did turn out that we had gone too far and had to go back on ourselves. But so really, but when I got there, the car park is huge, and it made me realize that actually this is the kind of tourist attraction where, the coach loads of Japanese tourists, get taken to. But the biggest problem then was actually, I mean, it's a phenomenal museum. But the biggest problem then I found was actually getting back, because could I convince a taxi driver to take me back? No, nobody wanted to go back into the city, especially in the late sort of, the evening traffic. So that's just something to be aware of, really. But it was really good. And as I say, the museum itself is phenomenal. Was it worth the struggle? Yes, definitely, because without that, I wouldn't have got to see the Siam tiara. So it is beautiful. And like I say, it's well worth a visit. Please do go if you find yourself in Bangkok. But do plan carefully. Plan how you're going to get there and how you're going to get back. And of course, if you're in Thailand, you've got to go to the boat, the food boats. It's again a wonderful experience. Lots of color. You must go. Australia. This again was just an amazing experience, and I can't encourage you enough, really, to go and try this. I hired a Juicy Crib, this beautiful green vehicle that you see, and I drove 4,444 kilometers around the outback. I took 6 weeks, mind you, over it. And I took in 5 different opal shows, and I just saw some amazing opals. In fact, I think all in all, I discovered that there are 15 different types of opal. So again, there is so much to know about opal. It's not as simple. It's helpful to go with a little bit of knowledge about opals. And this is actually Winton. As I say, I took in 5 opal shows. And this is Winton, where I met this chap behind the desk, and his name is Daryl, and he was a great chap, and we had some great drinks at the bar. Rum and Coke was his favorite. So but he invited me to go to this place called Opalton, and again, it's way in the outback. I mean, it's quite a desolate area. So again, you really do need to go prepared. Now, at this time, I was actually, and it's a great place for fossicking. There are lots and lots. There are well, not lots and lots, but there are rules that you need to know about fossicking. But in Opalton, it's sort of, you can just sort of go around and scour the ground and look for opals yourself. But what I didn't know is that there are a lot of snakes in Australia, and you have to wear appropriate shoes. And I think at the time, I wasn't actually, because I didn't really learn about this until later on in my tour. And I had actually been walking around this area in just sandals with open toes. So thank goodness no harm came to, I didn't encounter any snakes, but it really is something you need to be aware of. So the other area that I went to in Australia is called Gemfields, and I met a lovely woman called Cindy Kelly. I don't know whether she's here tonight, but again, there are rules and regulations when it comes to fossicking or digging for sapphires. But here we are. You can see we're in her back garden, and this was, I mean, that you can see this here they are here. I don't know whether you can see, but I don't know whether you can see. Anyway, so that you can see those are my finds, and that the sapphire that I'm actually holding there up to the sun, that's 4.5 carats. So But it's a sort of a 3 or 4 step process to actually sort of, when you're digging and then you're sifting, and there's a whole technique to it as well. So that was great fun. And, tourists can do this either on organized trips, or, as I say, you need to know the rules and regulations, but you can actually go and do it yourself without signing up to anything special. But that was a really good, memorable experience. And like I said, I've got my souvenirs. So and then, okay, so now those are some highlights really of Australia. But now let's just move on to the USA. This is, and I hope I'm not going too fast for anybody, but I am very conscious of the time and that we want to finish in time for the football. So I'm kind of, but anyway, so here we are in the USA, and you can see the areas that I actually covered in red here. However, this week, I don't know if any of you noticed that the GIA published these 2 maps on their Instagram, and I thought, brilliant, so and I hope they don't mind me borrowing it, but it does say courtesy of GIA in the bottom corner there. But I put 2 together, and basically what it shows me is actually, there's so much more than I ever dreamt of in terms of, gemstones in America. So there's a good lot more there for me to actually go and discover when I get around to doing a second edition of the USA book. But basically, I made a couple of trips, and those are my routes. And the first trip was purely driving. And again, that was a good sort of, I don't know, 3,000 miles or something. And then the second trip, I actually sort of had to fly. It was 3 different flights, and then I hired a car in between and drove to the next step. Drove and then took another flight, hired another car, took another flight, and that's how I did that one. So so that was interesting. It was a little bit. I didn't enjoy that second trip quite so much, because I had to actually sort of drive and find my hotel before nightfall, and and it was a little bit more pressured doing it that way. But anyway, nevertheless, I made some really good discoveries during that trip. And this was the first time I had actually ever been to the Tucson Gem Show, and and I've put a section in the USA book. There is, excuse me, there is a section to help people, especially if it's your first time, actually navigate the Tucson Gem Show. It is quite overwhelming, even for even for someone like myself who's been a lot around gemstones. It's there is a lot to understand, a lot of things to take into account. Really, there's the whole transport system, which was completely overwhelming, and I was terrified of getting lost. And if you don't take the right bus, you could end up going right all the way around the circuit to get back home. So you kind of need to know a little bit about how the transport system works. So and there was a variety of different shows. I think I tried. I was there for about a week, so I maybe did one show or 2 shows a day, just to try and work out which shows were the which shows were worth going to. And obviously, and I had the advice as well from my friend Jan Callaghan from the SGA, and she kind of helped me navigate through the whole Tucson experience as well. So so I owe her a debt of gratitude. But it is it's an amazing experience. If you haven't been to Tucson, well, when we can all travel again, then you really you really must try it. You'll have fun, but just just take it one step at a time. Don't try and see too much, because that's when you really will get overwhelmed. Just really pick a show and enjoy that for what it is, really. That's what I found worked for me anyway. And then the other experience that I really enjoyed in the States was gold panning. And again, for me, this was a first time experience. and I met Liz McCormick, who owns the Lucky Strike mine, and she loves giving tourists sort of like a gem panning lesson. And then when you get the hang of it, it's actually, I really got into a rhythm. And she said, oh, you're almost a natural at it, but you do get the hang of it. Your arms, for the first hour, your arms really ache. So but persevere, and it's great. And I did it for a couple of hours, and I did actually end up with a little bit of gold in there. So yeah, so it's fun. But that was a great tourist experience. And there's more than one place in the USA. In fact, I'm sure that there's several places in the USA where you can go gold panning. So, and then let's have a look at India. What did I find in India? Apart from just so many different gemstones, never seen quite so many in my life, apart from at Tucson. But India is really vast selection. And for this particular trip, I flew into Delhi, and again, I did this by flying, and then when I was actually in a location, I sort of went around by tuk-tuk. I didn't feel confident enough to drive myself, so I really sort of took taxis and tuk-tuks to get around. I actually, part of one of my destinations was Hyderabad. And I actually met this wonderful family. You can see them there in the middle right-hand side. And they took me under their wing for a day, which was fun. They took me out for lunch to sort of Hyderabad's, best sort of biryani restaurant. I actually met them at the Chow Mawala, I hope I pronounced that right, but at the palace, where they were actually having their photos taken. They were all dressed up, and that's another tourist experience. But we actually ended up at the Charminar, where there's a big market. And funny enough, this guy in the middle, I don't think it was him, but I saw somebody who was selling the pearls, and I was just so gobsmacked, honestly. He was holding up these pearls and a cigarette lighter underneath, telling, and he had a crowd of people around him, telling people, see that they're natural pearls because they don't burn. I was gobsmacked, I really was. And then later, and I was so taken back that actually I forgot to take a picture of this. But I later on discovered that there's a spray. They use a special spray that protects the pearls that are possibly made of plastic, but it protects them, and then it does stop them from burning. So clever trick. But anyway, I had a great day with this family, and owe them a huge debt of gratitude as well. So that was very, very interesting. And in this same trip, I actually went up to Kashmir. There's a small section in the India book about Kashmir, but to be honest, I'll show you in a second, but I really didn't see much. But I just want to say this is Fayez Ahmed John and his wife, who again hosted me and took me under their wing, and they organized a driver, and they have a very small place, home, with this one room, which is also their bedroom and their kitchen, and basically it's there. And then they have although no, I use their room upstairs, so they've got two rooms, but it's a small place. And this picture on the right hand side is called a kangaroo, and I don't know if you've ever experienced using a kangaroo. Well, it was December, so it was very, very, very cold, and basically they shared their kangaroo with me. We took it in turns, and you put it under your clothing, under your dress, in between your legs, and it keeps you warm, and it really does. It's really good. I mean, I was terrified at first. I was thinking, I'm putting fire inside, under my dress and in between my legs. How mad is that? But actually, it works a treat. So, and it's perfectly safe. So, anyway, again, my thanks to them for really kind of looking after me and giving me, a good experience. And so whilst we were in Kashmir, as I say, I didn't really see that much in the way of gemstones. I was very lucky. We did actually. I did get to see one blue sapphire there, but obviously, because of the situation there, people don't want to flash their gemstones around or even admit to sort of having sapphires. So, and mostly what I found was they had tribal sort of this fashion jewelry, which is sort of the replicating sort of tribal, looks like tribal jewelry. And then there was a lot of turquoise jewelry as well, sort of again replicating the tribal headwear and tribal clothes and what have you, all made of turquoise. So it was interesting, but not too many gemstones really, unfortunately. And one of the things actually that I did try, that I did do when I was actually there, is I ended up spending a couple of nights in a boat house owned by this lady in the rowing boat. Like I say, it was so cold, and it was such an old boat house. It was a little bit rickety, and it was an experience. But I just suggest that don't go in December. Don't go to Kashmir in December. Go in the summer months when the hills are beautiful and it's green. But I mean, if you do go in the winter, then obviously there's skiing and other winter sports that you can do. But anyway, that was a big that was a huge experience for me, and first time on a houseboat really. So really, I mean, this is it. I just wanted to say this was really, the biggest highlight really for me of this whole adventure has been, just the number of people that I've met along the way, the number of friendships that I've made, and the people who have been so generous and have hosted me or showed me around, and the experiences that they've organized for me, and it's just been tremendous. And I think really sort of through this whole sort of gemstone tourism journey, that's really the biggest highlight is having friends all over the world, and a lot of their contacts are in the books as well. So I think really that kind of almost, we're almost at the end there. I don't know what time it is, but I just want to say, I mean, these are really the main lessons that I have learned along the way. I mean, is buying from a reputable dealer. I mean, if this is sort of, again, these are tips, for if you're passing on tips to your clients or whatever. But like I say, for me, these were the biggest lessons for me was, when I bought that ruby was, well, so now I would buy from a reputable dealer, and and make sure that your expensive purchases come with a certificate. I mean, did you see the picture of that silly little? I thought that was a proper certificate. I mean, how naive was I? So I just didn't know any better. So always make sure that it comes with a proper certificate. And then again, this is the ruby, and it's absolutely flawless. And I just thought, how beautiful is that? Well, gemstones that size, flawless like that, don't come around every day. And so if you do see a flawless gemstone at a very low price, then the saying is, if it looks too good to be true, then it usually is. So really, so those are really the biggest lessons that I have taken away from my whole journey. So I would just want to say really, really thank you very, very much for listening. I could tell you 1,000 stories. It was really difficult to really choose, select the stories to tell you tonight. And I really could sort of talk for hours about some of the places that I've been to and the people that I've met.